Invincible Season 4, Episode 7 is officially here, so let's just get right into it, because today we're talking Invincible Season 4, Episode 7, breakdown and review. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, Invincible Season 4, Episode 7, let's just get right into it. So with this episode, I absolutely loved almost every single thing we got from it. And I know for my past couple reviews, I've been saying that. However, the latter half of Season 4 of Invincible has been some of the best episodes we've gotten from the entire series. And this episode starts out with some insane moments. We actually finally get some more backstory for Viltrum, some more backstory for Thragg. We see a younger Thragg, a younger Thetis, and we even see Emperor Argal. I like the entire interaction right at the beginning where Thetis is starting to question the ways of the Viltrumites, and every single other Viltrumite aside from Thetis shuts down everything he is saying, and they come up with a solution to wipe out 25% of the population of a planet just to get them to submit. And then after this meeting, Thragg quite literally points out to Argal that it might be time to take out Thetis. That yes, he was incredibly ruthless during their missions together. However, since they returned from those missions, Thetis has shown weakness. Thetis has started to show compassion for lesser beings. So he might be someone we have to take out for the betterment of Viltrum. And Argal does tell Thragg that he should do what he thinks is right for Viltrum, and it's at this moment that Argal is actually taken out. Now, one downside in my opinion is that we didn't actually get to see him get taken out. Maybe that's because it wasn't even worth showing, because I believe he is just speed blitzed and then killed pretty much immediately. However, even that being said, I feel like it still would have been cool to actually see this altercation and see him actually be taken out versus seeing the moments that just lead up to him actually being taken out. It would have been something that was really cool and probably the only thing that I wasn't a huge fan of in this episode. However, that being said, we then do go to the funeral for Argal, and this is when it officially begins. The Great Purge. Thragg just offs someone immediately. He says that they need to purge all of their weakness, and he looks at one person and says, "I do not believe that you won't betray us," and he kills him absolutely immediately. And it is at this moment that every single Viltrumite just starts to have a free-for-all killing each other. And the only thing I will say about this, aside from the fact that it was incredibly brutal, I can't believe they started the episode with this brutal of a sequence. However, that being said, I feel like the entire purge of Viltrum doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do understand it from the Viltrumites' perspective to a degree, that they're trying to strengthen their ranks and they're trying to ensure that only the strong survive. However, there are multiple Viltrumites during this purge that kill other Viltrumites, and then right after they kill 1 to 2 Viltrumites, they are killed from behind. They are attacked and then killed. Wouldn't them being able to kill 1 to 2 other Viltrumites show that they are worthy and show that they are strong enough to live? So that's something that just has not made sense to me. I don't know if they are going to explain that more, or if the ideology is simply that if you were able to get killed, you are deemed weak no matter what. Even if you were able to kill other Viltrumites, that just means they were that much more below you, and you are still weak, you are still unworthy. So I feel like that is the ideology that they have, and why they are just okay with killing anyone, even if it is someone who realistically proved they were strong and were worthy. However, that being said, the purge does then come to an end. We actually get a really interesting interaction between Thragg and Conquest after the purge is finished, and Conquest wants to keep going. And in this moment, I actually thought we were going to get a brief fight between Conquest and Thragg. I thought maybe that's how Conquest actually lost his arm. However, I believe it was actually during the Scourge virus where he does lose his arm. So unfortunately, we did not get to see Conquest versus Thragg. However, it does just go to show you how much authority Thragg had throughout his entire time with the Viltrum Empire, because not even Conquest was willing to go against him at all. As soon as Thragg said something, Conquest listened and Conquest obeyed what he said. After this, another thing that I really liked is when we actually go back to present day. Everyone joins Thetis on the ship and they are going to Viltrum. They are officially going to take the fight to the Viltrumites, and you have that really funny interaction where the team's sitting at the table talking about their last meal, and everyone shares what type of food they would want to eat, and then Battle Beast just comes out of nowhere and mentions how he wants to feast upon his own blood after his opponent was able to kill him, and everyone just kind of looks around and doesn't say anything. This is the kind of comedy that I absolutely love when Invincible does it, because to me it absolutely lands. It was a really hilarious moment, and it broke up some of the tension that the characters were feeling, because before fighting Thragg, they were all feeling this extreme anxiety. And that actually brings me to another thing that I really liked that they did in this episode, and that's showing Mark recording messages for Eve. I feel like he has been doing this the entire time, especially because he quite literally says, "This is probably my last message that I'll be able to record to you." And he starts talking about how he is doubting himself before this battle against Thragg, how he and everyone else is nervous about it, but then he very quickly snaps out of it and says that Eve will never even see this message because he is coming back alive. And this is something that I really like about Mark's character. He has this belief in himself and belief that they will all triumph, that good will defeat evil in the end. However, unfortunately for them, once they do arrive on Viltrum, it is discovered that the Viltrumites were expecting them. It was a trap, and this was actually pretty clever, as some of the Viltrumites were actually hidden within that ring of Viltrumite bodies, and this is when the actual battle begins. We get some really cool matchups. One of my absolute favorites was actually Anissa going up against Omni-Man, and they fight for a pretty long time. Alan is finally putting in work. Tech Jacket is absolutely decimating a couple Viltrumites. Now, she is doing this with that toxin they were able to extract from those bugs, and after she shoots someone, they become so weakened that Alan is just absolutely tearing through people. Thetis is still an absolute badass. He's taking out multiple Viltrumites, even after being stabbed in the back right from the start. And we do get somewhat of a round two between Krieg and Thetis, and Krieg in this moment actually goes for the open wound that Thetis already had. And even with this weakness from Thetis, he is still able to get the upper hand and kick the absolute shit out of General Krieg. However, even despite this effort from Thetis and the coalition, the Viltrumites are still getting the upper hand. However, that upper hand does not last long, because who would arrive? Space Racer. And he is not just bringing his Infinity Ray, which is incredibly overpowered. He brought a whole horde of Ragnars, and these Ragnars start to absolutely tear through multiple Viltrumites. And as this is going on, we see some other battles continue to take place. We actually get to see a brief interaction between Battle Beast and General Krieg. They do go toe-to-toe against one another. Alan continues to just take on multiple Viltrumites. One of my complaints from a previous episode was that Alan seemed to have gotten nerfed. However, they definitely made up for that in this episode. They showed Alan was an absolute badass. And one of my other favorite interactions from this entire episode was actually between Nolan and Thragg. Nolan goes to punch Thragg, and Thragg absolutely knocks Nolan all the way down to Viltrum with just one shot. However, in this moment, we don't get a battle between the two of them. We get a talk between two people of the same species, and Thragg quite literally says to him that everything can be forgiven, that you and your sons can join the Viltrum Empire. Stop this now, and you can help us win this war. And in this moment, for a brief time, I thought Nolan actually might consider it, because of one thing that Thragg said that actually tied back to something Thetis had said to Nolan. And that's the fact that Mark and Oliver will probably be targeted by Thetis and the coalition, because Thetis quite literally said no Viltrumite can remain living. And yes, he was probably talking about himself as well. However, Nolan has to be worried that that obviously translates to his two sons, who are quite literally half Viltrumite. And he even says this to Thetis, and Thetis realistically doesn't acknowledge it at all. So the fact that Thragg is also bringing this up in this moment actually gets the audience to think that Omni-Man might actually consider Thragg's offer. However, he is very quick to shut it down, and he even acknowledges that Thragg might be right and that Thetis and the coalition might come after his sons. However, he wouldn't let that happen. And this is a moment that I really enjoy for Omni-Man, because it's really showing that all that matters to him isn't his empire and isn't being accepted back on Earth. All that truly matters to him is his sons and their well-being. So he's going to do anything and everything to make sure they are protected. And after this interaction, Thragg is absolutely pissed. He actually punches him up into the atmosphere with relative ease. We see multiple characters trying to go up against Thragg as well. Oliver literally gets his arm ripped off. He is absolutely no match for Thragg, and I feel like Oliver at this point should not fight anyone. He literally went up to Thragg, punched him once, and then tried to run away, and then absolutely got destroyed, got his arm ripped off, and got knocked out instantly. So he has been pretty useless in virtually virtually every single fight and is actually a detriment to everyone else, so I feel like he absolutely should have stayed home. Luckily for Oliver, though, he has people there, so they do not allow him to be killed. Mark goes to swoop in, and before he swoops in, he says, "I killed Conquest." And it's at this moment that every single Viltrumite stops to acknowledge this feat. They actually pan to multiple Viltrumites to see their actual reaction to the fact that Mark was able to kill Conquest, someone that was feared by virtually everyone in the Viltrum Empire. We see Anissa and General Krieg's reaction to this fact, and I feel like this is going to start making some of the Viltrumites at least respect Mark like they respect Nolan, because it's been very obvious that although they despise Nolan for betraying them, they have this ultimate respect for who Nolan was. So I feel like some of that respect is going to now be translated to Mark because he was able to defeat Conquest, someone who is held in such high regard. However, unfortunately, Thragg is not Conquest, and Thragg is able to eat every single one of Mark's punches, and then he is able to take out virtually every single person in the coalition. He goes up against Battle Beast and takes him out with relative ease, just throwing aside his jetpack and then throwing Battle Beast out of the battle, and he is then gone. And it's at this moment Nolan realizes they cannot win this fight this way, so he, Mark, Thetis, and Space Racer do decide they're going to absolutely decimate the planet Viltrum, and it's at this moment that Space Racer fires his laser. It smashes right through Viltrum, and right behind that laser is the team of Omni-Man, Mark, and Thetis, and they absolutely destroy Viltrum. So now all the Viltrumites have no planet left. Thetis quite literally says, "It's time to surrender. Your planet is gone. You have lost this." And in this moment, you see Thragg. He is absolutely pissed, and he even says, "No, I choose death," and then speed blitzes faster than anyone has ever speed blitzed in this universe over to Thetis and rips his head clean off of his body. Now I understand why they decided to show Thetis as such a badass, because they were planning to have him absolutely decapitated by the main villain to showcase how much of a threat Thragg is. And I am actually really sad that we aren't going to get any more Thetis. He was a character that I was thoroughly enjoying. However, this was such a badass and epic moment. I can't say that I hate it, and I actually absolutely loved it. Even though it means we aren't going to get any more Peter Cullen and that amazing voice, it was still an epic moment. And it's at this time that Thragg starts to just absolutely decimate everyone. He goes up against Nolan, and he is just beating the shit out of him at this point. Mark tries to swoop in, however, his efforts do not do anything at all, and Omni-Man is able to be taken out by Thragg. Right before he's taken out by Thragg, though, we get this interaction between Mark and Nolan, where Mark is genuinely afraid, and he even looks to his dad and says, "What are we going to do?" And Omni-Man just has that look of desperation, and he too has no clue what they're going to do, how they're going to survive this. But before he can say anything or realistically react, Thragg punches straight through him, very similarly to how Conquest punched through Mark a couple episodes ago. And then it's at this moment that he starts to squeeze Mark's head. We see him gouging out his eyes. All the Viltrumites then do arrive, and they are telling Thragg to kill Mark. However, in this moment, Thragg decides, after seeing the destruction of Viltrum and seeing all the dead Viltrumites, that he is not going to kill Mark in this moment. He's going to spare both of them because they are both still Viltrumites. So he does leave both of them alive, and in addition to the entire planet Viltrum being destroyed, they had multiple Viltrumites that got killed, not just by the Ragnars or Alan or Battle Beast, but Space Racer killed at least 3 to 5 Viltrumites by absolutely one-shotting them. As I've said in previous videos, this character is so absolutely broken. However, speaking of broken, it is at this time that we do see Mark. After his injuries, he does start to heal. He wakes up to find Alan is the new leader of the coalition. Oliver is okay, even though he is unconscious, and Nolan did survive. No surprise there, considering what Mark was able to survive at the hands of Conquest. It is pretty reasonable that Nolan would survive his injury as well. And it's at this moment that Alan tells everyone what the new mission is, and that he's been charged for the time being with finding the rest of the Viltrumites and putting a stop to their empire once and for all. However, they can't seem to locate the Viltrumites anywhere, and it's at this moment that Mark has a realization, and Alan even says to him, "Mark, what's wrong? What are you thinking?" And in this moment, Mark says they've gone to Earth, and that's where it ends. It leaves off telling us that the Viltrumites have gone to Earth, and considering they were interested in repopulating their empire, it stands to reason they would go to Earth. They know that humans are very compatible with Viltrumites, so that is probably Thragg's idea, to repopulate his empire. So I feel like next episode, we are going to get to see the people of Earth try to go up against the Viltrumites and absolutely fail. I cannot wait for this finale. This season has probably been one of my favorites, but I'm interested to hear from all of you. What did all of you think of this episode? What did you think of Thaddeus's death? And what do you think is going to happen in this next episode in the finale? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.